My name is Yasmin Corbett. I'm 29, the youngest of 3 daughters in a family where strength was currency, and I was always bankrupt. My sisters became lawyers and surgeons, polished and perfect in every holiday photo, while I barely survived community college and now work customer service for a tech company I don't even understand. At family dinners, I was the afterthought, too soft, too polite, too invisible. But invisible has its advantages. You see things others miss. You remember things they dismiss. Like the way my future mother-in-law started calling my fiancé sweetheart a little too casually, or how their voices dropped when I entered the room. I used to think I was just paranoid, until the day I came home early and heard water running upstairs. The house was quiet when I stepped inside, too quiet. No TV, no keyboard clicks from Ryland's work setup. The silence felt thick, staged, like the air itself was holding its breath. Click. The front door latched shut behind me. I froze. The bathroom was upstairs. Water was still running. My shoes left no sound on the stairs, and yet every step felt like a drumbeat inside my head. Top of the landing. Pause. The bedroom door cracked. The master bath. Steam curling from beneath the frame. Then, a laugh. Soft. Feminine. Not mine. Not Ryland's. I didn't knock. I opened the door. Slowly. Controlled. No drama. And there she was. Evelyn. My future mother-in-law. In my bathtub. With my fiancé. Their heads turned at the same time. A split second, then panic. They scrambled, slipping, reaching for towels, shouting nonsense. I didn't flinch. Stay in the tub, I said. Voice flat. Cold. Mine. I stepped out, locked the door from the outside. A solid metallic click. I called no one. Not yet. I stood in the hallway, heart like a grenade pin, pulled but not yet detonated. Then I walked downstairs. Every movement deliberate. Kitchen drawer. Back left corner. The backup key to Evelyn's safe in her guest room. The one she thought I didn't know about. Because invisible people aren't supposed to see. 3 hours earlier, I was at work, sorting client escalations. Juno, my only real friend at the office, had leaned across the desk with that look. You've been off lately. What's going on? Just pre-wedding nerves, I muttered, eyeing Ryland's unread texts. He hadn't answered my lunch invite. Again, Juno tapped a pen against her coffee lid. Your gut is smarter than you think. I dismissed it, but it stayed with me. The safe was dusty. Code 1902. Evelyn's mother's birthday. Predictable. Inside, passports, jewelry boxes, and a blue folder tied with string. I opened it with gloved fingers. Bank statements. Wire transfers. Offshore account applications. All in my name. My name. My signature. Except I never signed anything. The air in the room thinned. The steam upstairs wasn't the only thing suffocating. A sticky note fluttered loose from one page. Keep her calm, at least until October. October. That's when the prenup expired. I sat on the bed, folder in hand, and stared at the wall like it might blink first. Everything was calculated. Ryland's proposal. The charm. The way Evelyn had bonded with me. They didn't just betray me. They planned to use me. And I'd almost let them. I picked up my phone. Dialed Juno. Yes? What's wrong? I need you to find me a lawyer. Not a cheap one. A pause. Yaz, what happened? I glanced upstairs. The water had stopped. Finally, I caught them. Evelyn and Ryland. In my bathtub. And it's worse than cheating. A beat of silence. Then Juno said, Tell me what you need. Time. And gloves. I shut the safe. Relocked it. Hid the folder in the kitchen freezer beneath the bag of frozen peas. No one ever checks the peas. I cleaned the doorknob. Wiped the counter. Tied up my hair. Then I walked upstairs again. Calm. Precise. the way a surgeon moves before the first incision. I pressed my palm to the bathroom door. The wood was warm, damp, and I whispered so only they could hear. You played the long game. So will I. The sound of the tub draining above my head was like a countdown clock. I stood in the kitchen, staring at the freezer. The folder was in there, wrapped in a Ziploc, shoved behind a stack of microwavable dinners and unopened edamame. I had 10, maybe 15 minutes before Evelyn would try to open that door. Maybe less. I grabbed my phone and tapped Juno's name. No answer. I tried again. Still nothing. A knock at the front door. I jumped, but it was just a neighbor's kid chasing a basketball. The thud rolled off into silence. My lungs released. Don't overreact. Don't spiral. The voice in my head sounded like my mother. Control is power. Panic is exposure. I opened my email and began typing to myself. Subject line for legal eyes only. Attach the photos I took of the documents. Hit send. Then I cleared the sent folder, the deleted folder, every trace. There's something wild about how quickly your body adapts when betrayal becomes survival. I went upstairs. The bathroom door handle jiggled. Yasmin. Ryland's voice shaky. We need to talk. Later, I said. What the hell are you doing? Thinking. Evelyn's voice cut through the door like smoke. Sweetheart, just open the... I knocked once. Sharp. Loud. Your guests in my house. Don't forget that. I walked to the guest room. Knees tight, palms numb. The room smelled like lavender and fabric softener. Too clean, like it was trying to hide something. The dresser was locked. Obvious. Cheap lock. Silver key, still taped under the top drawer. Sloppy. Inside, boxes, photo albums, old tax returns, and a velvet pouch. I emptied it. Jewelry. A stack of old IDs. 3 different names. What the hell? A SIM card. No label. And a slip of notepaper. Scribbled, call Alec. Tell him the switch is delayed. Switch? I pocketed the SIM and IDs, then locked everything back up. Back in the hallway, I could hear them whispering behind the bathroom door. She's not stable. That was Evelyn. She's never been like this, Ryland muttered. You rushed it. You said she wouldn't check anything. I walked away before I heard more. I didn't need to. I'd heard enough. The next morning I called in sick. Juno finally called back. What happened? I need a burner laptop, encrypted VPN, and whatever you use when you're too paranoid to Google something. She didn't even ask why. Just said, meet me in the parking garage. B2. 20 minutes. Some friends. Ask questions. Others hand you a loaded weapon. Her car was dark blue, windows tinted, and it smelled like gasoline and vanilla gum. She passed me a backpack. I shouldn't be doing this, she said, but if you're in the kind of mess I think you're in, you need to see what you're dealing with. I opened the laptop, booted up. She showed me how to mask my IP, encrypt data, search bank ownership trails. Ryland's name, she asked. No, Evelyn's. She paused. Your future mother-in-law. I nodded. My throat was raw. We searched aliases. One name popped up. Cara Devon. Registered to a shell company in Nevada. Ownership linked to 2 condos, a warehouse, and a private consultancy in D.C. Juno leaned back. That's not a woman laundering money for kicks. That's someone trained. Trained. Government. Intelligence. Black contracts, or organized crime with lawyers smart enough to act like both. My fingers went cold. I think I was the asset, I said. I think they're setting me up. Juno didn't respond. She didn't need to. That night, I checked Ryland's laptop while he was in the shower. Password was still my birthday. Goo. In the downloads folder, encrypted files, invoices, private flight manifests. One PDF stood out. Prenuptial addendum. Yasmin Corbett. I opened it. A clause had been added. Post-dated. My digital signature. But the date was from 6 weeks before we even got engaged. I leaned back, heart hammering. They forged my consent. I had legally relinquished any claim to assets after the marriage. They didn't just want to use me. They wanted to destroy me. I closed the laptop, pushed back from the desk, looked up, and saw a blinking red light on the bookshelf camera. Live. Recording. I'd been watched the entire time. I didn't even have time to turn it off, because the bathroom door opened, and Ryland stepped out, towel low on his hips, eyes dark, unreadable. "You're up late," he said. So I smiled, a little too wide, just catching up on emails. Then I walked to the bedroom window, pretended to look at the stars, but I was counting steps, mapping exits, because tonight I wasn't staying, and when I left, I'd take everything with me, including the lie they built this entire house on. At 4:15 a.m., I slipped out of bed and left the house. No note, no vlog, just the folder in the freezer, the SIM card taped inside my bra, and a burner phone buzzing with a single unread message from Juno. "I know someone who can help. Be smart." The air outside was sharp, biting. Streetlights flickered. Not a soul in sight, except the black sedan idling at the corner. Engine on. Headlights off. I didn't run. I walked. Calm. Slow. Like I belonged to the darkness. An hour later, I was 45 miles out of Atlanta, standing on a rotting dock outside a lake house that smelled like damp wood and stale beer. He opened the door shirtless, yawning, tattoos half faded and messy. "Vaughn, my cousin, ex-NSA, currently retired," which meant burned a bridge too big to rebuild. He studied my face. "You're not here for brunch." "Nope." "Then who's trying to ruin your life?" I handed him the folder. By 6 a.m., his living room looked like a crime scene. Papers everywhere. 2 monitors glowing in the dark, 1 coffee cup steaming next to a Glock on the table. "Here's what we know," Vaughn said, voice low, eyes locked on the screen. Evelyn, a.k.a. Kara Devon, registered 3 shell corporations through a dead lawyer in Reno. All 3 funneled money through a private bank in the Caymans using a digital asset switch. Guess whose name they attached the final account to? Mine. Exactly. You're their buffer, their shield. The signature trails are fake, but clean enough to pass first audit. How much money? $862,000, not including crypto. I laughed. It wasn't funny. Why me? He glanced at me. Because you're a nobody. Clean record. No debt. Emotionally conditioned to obey. Conditioned. He pointed at me. You've been groomed, Yaz. From the minute Rylan met you. This wasn't love. It was acquisition. We cracked the SIM card next. A burner network. Encrypted texts. Most from a contact, saved only as Alec. One message stood out. If she pushes, pull the panic clause. October 6th. Emergency hold. That's tomorrow, I whispered. Vaughn frowned. What the hell is a panic clause? I didn't know, but I knew one thing. Evelyn never did anything without layers. At noon, Vaughn traced the IP of the security camera back to a data routing service in Virginia, then to a server farm outside Baltimore. He paused. You were being watched from federal ground. No, that's a leased address. To who? He turned the screen to me. Rylan Halleck, Consulting Inc. Not Evelyn. Rylan. Twist the knife. That's what betrayal does. Once it punctures, it doesn't bleed. It spirals. He was behind the surveillance. I asked. Vaughn nodded. Looks like he funded the tech, ran the company accounts, and, wait, damn. He zoomed in on a scanned form. His father's name was used on 2 loan applications. His father's dead. Exactly. Dead people don't co-sign 6-figure loans, unless someone's resurrecting ghosts on paper. Outside, the wind had picked up. Trees clawed at the roof. Vaughn's dog barked once, sharp, and stared at the window. We turned off the lights. Waited. 2 minutes later, tires on gravel. He slid the Glock across the table. Back room. Now. I moved. A knock. Not a knock. A pound. Federal agents. Open the door. We didn't move. Another pound. Then silence. Then the sound of retreating footsteps. 15 minutes later, Vaughn cracked open the front door. Empty road. No tire tracks. No ID left behind. They were bluffing, he said. Why? To scare you into running. Why not just arrest me? Because they're not ready, or they're not real feds. At 3 p.m., I called Juno from Vaughn's encrypted line. I need access to the courthouse asset register. Yes, that's. I need to know if my name's on any property I didn't sign for. 2 hours later, she called back. Her voice was tight. You own a house in West Palm Beach. What? It was transferred into your name last month. Cash sale. You signed it. With a witness. Who? A pause. Rylan. That night I couldn't sleep. The lake rippled against the shore like whispers. My head spun with data. Names, clauses, lies. What if I never get out of this? I asked Vaughn. He stared into his whiskey glass. Then you burn it down before they bury you in it. And that's when I made the call. Not to a lawyer. Not to the police. To Evelyn. She answered on the second ring. Come. I could hear ice clinking in her glass. Yasmin, I was wondering when you'd stop pretending. I didn't blink. Let's meet. She laughed, low and elegant. And say what? That we both saw this coming. No, I said. To see how fast you unravel when you realize I know everything. Silence. Then, be at the estate. 8 a.m. No one else. She hung up. Vaughn looked at me. You sure you're ready? I smiled, but it felt like war paint cracking. She picked the battlefield, I said. I'll bring the fire. Evelyn's estate sat at the edge of a private, gated drive in Buckhead, wrapped in manicured hedges and a security system that looked like it belonged to a military contractor. Motion sensors blinked under the eaves. Cameras tracked every angle. The house itself, stone, glass, steel, felt less like a home and more like a fortress built for someone who knew the world would eventually come hunting. I parked 2 blocks away and walked. No bag, no folder, no visible weapon. The less I carried, the harder it would be for anyone to claim I was staging anything. When I reached the front gate, it slid open without me touching a buzzer. She was already watching. I stepped inside. 2 uniformed men flanked the doorway. Not police, not security guards from any agency I recognized. They stood still, arms crossed, eyes blank. Don't speak to them, Evelyn's voice said from the foyer. They only understand contracts. She appeared at the top of the staircase, hair pulled back, silk robe cinched perfectly, as if betrayal hadn't touched a single cell in her body. Her smile wasn't warm. It was the kind of smile you see in portraits of queens who survived 3 assassinations. Breakfast, she asked. No. Tea. No. Good. Then let's get to the marrow. We walked into her sunroom. Floor-to-ceiling windows. Lake view. Too beautiful for what was coming. I sat. She stayed standing. Tell me what you think you know, she said. Her tone was casual, like we were swapping recipe notes. I met her eyes. I know you forged my signatures on 3 offshore transfers. She didn't blink. I know about the Palm Beach property under my name. Still nothing. And I know you used a dead cosigner for 2 business loans. Her lips curved slightly. Creative documentation is an art. You laundered money using my identity. She walked past me, fingers trailing across the marble countertop. Identity is elastic. Most people don't understand that. They cling to the version on their driver's license. But in the right ecosystem, an identity is a tool, or a shield, or a vessel. Is that all I was to you? A shrug, a useful fiction. My pulse throbbed in my ear. What happens on October 6th? I asked. She stopped, then turned. That was the first time she looked unsettled. You weren't supposed to find that clause, she murmured. Too bad. Evelyn eased into the seat across from me, shoulders squared. The emergency hold clause only activates if you attempt to dissolve the engagement. If you stay quiet, the assets remain dormant. If you pull away, everything inside the accounts triggers automatic investigation. Not by police, not by feds, by private auditors with contracts to seize and freeze anything under your name. I stared at her. You built a trap with my identity as the bait. No, darling. I built insurance, and you walked into it willingly. A hush fell between us. The quiet felt like a blade pressed under my ribs. Outside, rain began tapping the glass. It sounded like footsteps. I leaned forward. Why involve me at all? Evelyn studied my face like a scientist examining the nervous system of a new species. Every network needs someone with no priors, no debt, no scandals, no spotlight. Someone who looks forgettable on paper. Someone who blends into rooms without gravity. Someone conditioned to stay quiet. You mean someone weak. Her expression sharpened. I mean someone invisible. The French doors opened. Rylan walked in. He looked rested, showered, dressed in tailored gray. Not a single sign of shame. Morning, he said. I didn't speak. He sat beside his mother like it was a board meeting. You shouldn't have left the house, Yasmin. It created unnecessary concern. Concern, I repeated. You're becoming unpredictable, and unpredictability is expensive. Evelyn poured herself water, the ice clinking gently. Rylan continued, voice smooth enough to polish marble. You were going to marry into more security than you've ever imagined. You'd benefit from the insulation of a structure you don't need to understand. I almost laughed. Security? You used me as a laundromat with a heartbeat. That's dramatic, he said. No, I whispered. That's arithmetic. Evelyn slid a manila envelope across the table. Open it. I didn't touch it. She nodded toward it. Consider it an educational briefing. I picked it up, opened it slowly like it might hiss. Inside were 2 documents. A list of all assets, currently in my name. A clause with my digital signature authorizing automatic investigation if I filed charges. I felt lightheaded. If you take this to law enforcement, Evelyn said, your assets freeze instantly. Not just the offshore accounts. Your own checking. Your employment, your vehicle, your credit score implodes within 48 hours. You built a noose. No, she said calmly. We built equilibrium. Rylan leaned in. You don't walk away from this without blood on the walls. So you have 2 choices. Stay silent or burn with us. I stood, hands shaking, not with fear, but with clarity. I don't stay where I'm not safe. Evelyn smiled. Safety is a luxury earned through obedience. My voice sharpened. You should tattoo that somewhere. Here's the thing people forget. Power isn't about being feared. Power is about knowing how much fear someone else needs to survive. I didn't flinch. I didn't cry. I didn't give them the satisfaction of watching me collapse. Instead, I whispered, You're underestimating the wrong daughter. Her eyes narrowed. Your sisters won't help you, Evelyn said. They see you as furniture. Good, said. Furniture doesn't make noise when it moves. Rylan stood. Sit down. No. Lightning cracked over the lake, lighting up the windows like flashbulbs. And in that split second, as a shadow stretched across the glass, something hit me harder than any confession. Rylan had never once looked surprised that I caught them in the bathtub. Because he never needed to. I was never a threat. I was never supposed to survive long enough to notice. And that meant the bathtub wasn't the betrayal. It was the distraction. The reveal hit like gunfire. The setup didn't start with cheating, I whispered. Evelyn froze. Ryland's jaw flexed. My skin crawled. You seduced me into discovering that scene, I said. You wanted me to see you together. Silence swallowed the room. You needed me distraught, emotional, unstable, distracted enough that when the auditors look at the financial trail, they can claim I was compromised and unreliable. That my behavior today proves diminished credibility. Ryland didn't answer. He didn't have to. The bathtub didn't break the plan. The bathtub completed it. Rain hammered the skylights overhead as Evelyn's estate transformed into a negotiation chamber. I sat back down slowly, pulse thumping in my neck. If fear was a currency, I was suddenly the wealthiest woman in the room. Evelyn poured herself more water. Not wine, not whiskey. Water. Clear. Controlled. Deceptive in its purity. You think you uncovered the heart of this, she said. You didn't. You only peeled the first membrane. Then educate me. She smiled. Education requires willingness, and you've always been more reactive than intelligent. I held her eyes. Funny coming from a woman whose empire depends on a daughter-in-law with an unimpressive GPA. Ryland's jaw tightened. Evelyn waved a dismissive hand. You're here because invisibility is the most sophisticated camouflage in financial warfare. Criminals hide in plain sight, but the true masters, they hide in paperwork. She leaned in slightly, and no one audits and nobody. Ryland shifted, bored, or pretending. Let's move this forward, he said. You've seen the architecture. You understand the consequences if you act impulsively. What we want is equilibrium. What you want, I corrected, is silence. Semantics, Evelyn murmured. I tapped the envelope with my finger. So if I report fraud, I blow up my own accounts? Yes, Evelyn said. And you will be charged with financial conspiracy before a judge ever hears the word coercion. The moment your identity links to illicit transfers, you become a suspect, not a victim. And if I disappear, you'll be found, Ryland said. The paper trail lives underneath you. I breathed slowly, letting the silence stretch. My reflection in the window stared back at me, eyes wide, hair wild, mouth tight. The rain streaked down the glass like tears someone else was crying. I whispered, almost to myself, the most dangerous prisons are the ones you decorate yourself. Evelyn nodded, pleased. Exactly. You picked me because you thought I'd decorate my own. You did, she said simply. The floor vibrated with a distant metallic hum. I froze. So did Evelyn. Ryland stood abruptly, phone buzzing. He stepped away, whispering urgently into the screen. A text arrived on Evelyn's smartwatch. She read it, face darkening. Ryland turned back. Well, we have a complication. My heartbeat spiked. What complication? He didn't answer me. He looked at Evelyn. Someone filed a preliminary inquiry. Evelyn's mouth tightened. Already. Ryland nodded. Who? She demanded. He stared at me. I blinked. I didn't report anything. Not you, he said. Then who? Ryland exhaled. Your co-worker. Juno. Yes. The room shifted like gravity tilted sideways. I grabbed the edge of the table. You told her too much, Evelyn hissed. No, I said, voice sharp. I told her just enough to keep me alive. Ryland checked another message. She's not a novice. She invoked a mandatory financial suspicious activity review. It can't be cancelled without triggering escalation. Evelyn's jaw clenched. What agency? She demanded. AMC, Ryland said. Advanced Monetary Compliance. a private auditing branch that works with banks, regulators, sometimes with federal agencies, but not always. They were relentless. Evelyn whispered, almost impressed. That woman is reckless. No, I corrected. She understands leverage. Rylan slammed his fist once on the table. The water glass rattled. You don't understand what's at stake. AMC investigators don't discriminate. They scan every account, every relationship, every signature tied to you. If they see you with us, they don't assume you're innocent. They assume you're embedded. So I'm damned either way. Exactly, he said. Evelyn stood abruptly, pacing the length of the sunroom. Rain hit harder. Wind howled. Lights flickered. She turned to me again. You have until midnight to withdraw the inquiry. I didn't file it, I said. You will instruct Juno. I can't. You will. No. Evelyn stopped. Cold. Do you know what a financial ghost audit is? She asked. No. It's when AMC flags someone as high risk without the subject being publicly accused. Banks close accounts. Loans evaporate. Employers receive anonymous warnings. You don't get arrested or sued, you just stop existing economically. I swallowed. So, you want me economically erased? No, Evelyn said. I want you still and silent. Rylan looked at me hard. Make the call. I stared at the rain. You underestimated one thing, I said. What? Evelyn asked. You're assuming I want to survive quietly. Her eyes sharpened. Rylan tilted his head. Explain. People obey when they think they're protecting something. Reputation, savings, stability. But the minute a person stops caring about losing those things, that's when the cage stops working. I leaned back. And you've taken everything already. My future, my safety, my credibility, my relationship. So tell me, what exactly do I fear now? Evelyn stopped pacing. The collapse, she said simply. Maybe, I whispered. But collapse isn't always a defeat. Sometimes it's a strategy. Rylan scoffed. There is no strategy in implosion. There is, I said. If you don't mind who gets buried with you. Evelyn and Rylan both froze. I continued, quietly. If AMC files a full report, they don't just look at me. They look at you. They look at shell companies. They look at the faux co-signers. They audit the witnesses on my forged documents. They subpoena everyone who touched my accounts. The collapse isn't mine alone. It's yours. Evelyn stared at me like I'd just started speaking in a forgotten language. Her voice was a whisper. You would nuke yourself? One of the oldest strategies in warfare, I said. When you're surrounded, destroy the battlefield. Rylan clenched his jaw, voice low. You're bluffing. A thin smile touched my lips. I don't bluff. I adapt. Outside, lightning forked across the lake again, illuminating the whole sunroom in a flash of stark white. And in that moment, pure, terrible clarity, I knew something Evelyn didn't. Juno hadn't filed a small inquiry. She had filed a mandatory suspicious activity report that would auto-escalate to federal review if touched. Irreversible. Evelyn sensed the shift before I spoke. Her eyes narrowed. What did you do? I whispered. I didn't pull the ripcord. I pulled the whole plane. The moment I said I'd pulled the whole plane, Evelyn didn't blink, but Rylan did. A twitch. A fracture. Not fear. Realization. The kind that turns a confident man into a drowning one. He stood abruptly. You don't understand what you've done. I stayed seated. Calm. Centered. No, I said. I finally understand exactly what I'm capable of. For the first time all morning, Evelyn's voice wasn't velvet, it was steel. You've doomed us. Correction, I whispered. I've ended the leverage you had over me. Rylan slammed his phone onto the table. The screen lit with urgent alerts like a countdown timer. AMC already flagged the accounts, he muttered. If they expand the audit. They will, I cut in. You can't control that. I don't need to. Lightning cracked again. The lake churned under a dark sky that looked like Judgment Day. The house felt smaller, like pressure was squeezing every molecule of air into sharper edges. I stood now, just inches from Evelyn. You built this structure on the premise that I feared losing what you pretended to give me. But you never realized the simplest truth. Fear collapses when you've already lost everything. Evelyn stared like she was looking at a stranger she hadn't anticipated. There's a certain freedom in ruin, I said softly. It makes you unpredictable, and unpredictability is the one variable you can't insure against. Rylan paced the perimeter like an animal in a shrinking cage. You're going to prison, he hissed. For financial conspiracy. Your prints are in all of it. I took gloves from your guest room before touching anything, I said. He froze, and every document I interacted with was photographed, time-stamped, location-tagged, and emailed to a third-party secure cloud with metadata logs. I protected my chain of custody before I ever confronted you. Evelyn inhaled sharply. I continued. I consulted with Certified Compliance Counsel at 3 a.m. last night. She confirmed that if I disclose evidence early enough and notify regulators before the financial entities request statements, I fall under first-party whistleblower protection. You don't have the resources to coordinate that, Evelyn said. I don't, I agreed. Juno does. Silence. Wind rattled against the glass. Rylan whispered, You used her. No, I said. She used the truth. She said something once. Power isn't about winning. It's about surviving the people who never thought you would. I think she understood me better than either of you ever did. 2 hours later, AMC escalated their preliminary review into a mandatory multi-agency investigation. Not against me. Against all entities tied to the shell accounts, forged loan applications, and cross-signature witness trails. When Vaughn confirmed it by encrypted text, I turned my phone face down. Rylan's phone pinged with another message. His voice cracked. Federal counsel just requested witness rosters. Evelyn said nothing. Her fingers tightened around her glass until it threatened to break. I watched her, calm, detached. It's impressive, I said quietly. How easily the mighty forget they can also be audited. Evelyn's composure faltered, not fear, but exhaustion, like a queen who finally realized every soldier she sent into battle never planned on returning. She whispered, barely audible, You've ruined us. No, I said softly. I returned what you tried to ruin me with. That night, I left the estate under rolling sirens and floodlights. AMC units arrived in staggered intervals, accompanied by state financial regulators with sealed warrants, laptops, and chain of custody bags. They didn't arrest anyone. Not yet. Investigations start in silence. The loud part comes later. As I stepped into Vaughn's truck, he looked at me sideways. You sure you want to be attached to this? I'm not attached, I said. I'm documented. He nodded once. Whistleblowers don't get applauded. No, I agreed. But they survive. In the weeks that followed, banks froze every account tied to Evelyn's consulting network. Rylan surrendered his devices under subpoena. The Palm Beach property was locked under evidentiary hold. A team of forensic accountants reviewed the origin of every asset. My identity remained flagged as protected party. I moved into a small sublet outside Decatur. No cervalins. No marble floors. Just cheap wood, chipped paint, and light that came through sheer curtains in the mornings. Peace didn't arrive like a choir. It arrived like absence. No footsteps outside my door. No watchers in every light. No man waiting for me to stay quiet. Silence felt like oxygen again. 2 months later, Juno came over with takeout and laundry detergent. She flopped onto the carpet, tossed me a fortune cookie without ceremony. "You're insane," she said. "You know that, right?" I smiled. Adaptation often looks insane to the people who have never been hunted. She cracked open her fortune. "You will find strength in the places you feared most." I raised an eyebrow. "Cookie wisdom?" She shrugged. "Better than corporate memos." We sat in comfortable quiet. She finally whispered, "Do you ever wish none of this happened?" I thought about it. A different life. One where Rylan loved me for real. Where Evelyn saw me as family instead of anonymity she could weaponize. Where betrayal didn't shape my rib cage into armor. For a long time, I said, I believed peace came from not disrupting anything, not making noise, not demanding space. But sometimes the most violent storms happen because the universe refuses to let you stay asleep. Juno studied me. "You're different now," she said. "Maybe stronger. Maybe just awake." A moment passed. She whispered, some people spend their whole lives avoiding collapse. But collapse is rarely the ending. It's excavation. I nodded. Some walls aren't meant to protect us. They're meant to trap us until we're willing to break them. She smiled. I spent the next 6 months cooperating with investigators. Depositions, documentation reviews, hundreds of pages requested, notarized, preserved. Vaughn guided strategy. Juno managed secure storage. I learned how to say the word no without apology. Financial ecosystems move slowly. Frozen, then thawed, then frozen again. Justice is not cinematic. It is procedural. But truth has momentum. And momentum, once released, doesn't stop just because the guilty want silence. There's a line I keep taped to my wall now. Some endings are not exits. They are directions. I don't know who said it first. Maybe no one. Maybe suffering invents its own literature. But I believe it. The life I had before, the obedient youngest daughter, the invisible fiancé, the woman taught to make herself small to avoid conflict, she's gone. She didn't die. She evolved. I walk differently now. Not louder, just with gravity. The kind that comes from surviving people who thought betrayal would break you. And tonight, as I sit in my small, quiet apartment, folding laundry and watching the world outside move without surveillance, I feel something that once felt impossible. Safe. Not safe because nothing can hurt me. Safe because I finally understand the difference between hiding and living. Betrayal never defines who you are. What defines you is the moment you stop letting other people write your name into their paperwork, their plans, their stories. You become free when you finally realize that you don't need permission to walk away from a life that was never built for your survival. And freedom, I've learned, is rarely polite. It begins where fear ends.